Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity. Oh boy, do we have a lot to talk about, and I've been dying to do this video for a long time. I've got like 50 hours in the game already from just playing through it, so I've got a lot to say about this game. And we're going to start off by saying, first of all, this is a review and this will contain some spoilers, but I'm going to try and avoid them as much as possible, but there will be some spoilers, so if you don't want to get spoiled, turn away now. First off, this completely exceeded any expectations I had for this game. I'm someone who didn't like the first Hyrule Warriors. In fact, I completely hated the original Hyrule Warriors. The style of gameplay just wasn't good to me. It wasn't fun. It was very repetitive and not very rewarding. Now you might be thinking, why the hell did I buy Age of Calamity? And as I mentioned in my trailer reaction video, I was interested in the story. The idea that Nintendo were making a prequel to Breath of the Wild was something really interesting, and I think that's why a lot of people wanted to buy this game. And obviously the demo hinted at it, and then when we got the actual game, it was confirmed to us that this wasn't actually a prequel. This was a different timeline where the events of Breath of the Wild are prevented. And you know, at first, when I first started seeing spoilers and hearing this sort of stuff, it made me angry originally. Originally, I was thinking Nintendo lied to us. They falsely marketed the game, and they promised us a product that wasn't what the final one was. And this was bothering me for a while, and I was expecting to hate the game because of that. But when I actually did get the game, when I played it, all of that was just thrown out the window. The game was absolutely fantastic. I was just having a lot of fun, and to be fair, the first half of the game plays out like a prequel, so I guess it wasn't too bad. The gameplay, each character plays very differently from each other. A common complaint I hear about every other Warriors game, including Hyrule Warriors, is that characters always have the same movesets. They always feel the same. There's not enough to make them different from each other. And Age of Calamity completely shattered that. It's revamped the Warriors brand in a way, because now each character is very different from each other. Some are stronger with specific attacks than others. For example, Mipha's bomb attack I feel is a lot stronger than, let's say, Zelda's. Just little nuances like that are really cool. These little small details. Urbosa being able to charge up her lightning. You know, there's a lot of different traits each character has gameplay wise that make them very unique and diverse from each other. And that just makes the game a whole round better experience for us. To match these sort of new abilities, the game has thrown in some new diverse enemies. And just like Breath of the Wild, there are more powerful ones than the basic enemies you've got. Now we've got elemental moblins, Hinoxes, and Lynels, and Guardians, on top of Malice, Lynels, Hinoxes, and Guardians. These are tough enemies. Like, if these were in Breath of the Wild would be much more terrifying. The game throws these enemies at you later on, and it never feels unfair. The weird thing about it is that you'll often be going up against a Malice Guardian and an Electric Guardian at the same time, but it won't feel unfair. It never feels unfair. It always feels manageable. You never feel like you're way out of your depth and that you can't do it. It's always manageable, except on the time challenges, which we'll get to in a bit. But it's always manageable, and the funny thing is that it fits into the story. You know, in the story you're supposed to be overwhelmed because the calamity is about to happen, so it makes sense gameplay-wise, and story-wise it makes sense, so it all works out in a way. The voice acting and the cutscenes, there's a lot more this time around, and I think the game's better for it. I love that this is more story-focused, and I'm someone who loved the story in Breath of the Wild. Don't get me wrong, I thought it was really cool. I liked that Nintendo went for a darker story. But this one, even though I originally hated it, I was opposed to the time travel thing, and it doesn't make any sense, it still doesn't. I absolutely love it, and I don't know why. I prefer Age of Calamity over Breath of the Wild. Maybe it's because of the world as well, you know, even though I loved seeing the ruins of everything in Breath of the Wild, most of the world was very barren. In Age of Calamity, there's never like a barren place. Everything is filled to the brim with settlements and houses and villages. And for me, this was at its peak. on the Great Plateau. I think I speak for a lot of people here. The Great Plateau blew me away. Because it never came into my mind that the Great Plateau would have been so big. You know, you see the ruins of it in Breath of the Wild, and you don't think that there was giant, like, towers and houses and stuff here. There's a whole, like, small village near the staircase that leads to the plateau from the ground. And it's just, when you see that, when you see the Temple of Time, it just completely blows me away. I would have loved to explore it a little without all the guardians and Lynels chasing me, but it's a different Zelda game, so, well, it's technically not a Zelda game, but, you know, it is what it is. The boss fights were really fun. They were insanely fun. The first fight in Korok Forest with Aster was really fun, and I don't know why. I mean, he's not challenging or anything. In fact, he's pretty weak, but I don't know. Maybe it was the fact that a few days before that I was talking with some friends about how the Great Deku Tree is supposed to protect Korok Forest, and how, like, a villain could just stroll in and do whatever they wanted. He wouldn't be able to stop them. And then you have a boss fight in Korok Forest. I thought it was kind of a funny coincidence. So maybe that played into it. I don't know, but that first Aster fight was pretty cool. He also happens to be one of the things I do have complaints about with this game. Aster is the worst villain in the entire Zelda franchise. We know the exact same about him from playing the game as we did from watching the trailers, which is absolutely nothing. We know his name, and we know that he's the fortune teller from Breath of the Wild. We don't know his motives, his backstory, anything like that, or where he is in Breath of the Wild. And it's so disappointing because Breath of the Wild kept teasing this fortune teller character. The Masterworks book kept teasing this character, and even at one point they suggested that it was actually Zelda's mother. And then we finally get the character in Age of Calamity, and he's basically nobody. Like, that was a disappointment, and I feel like it was wasted potential there. They had potential to make a really cool and interesting villain, but they didn't. Suga, I mean, a lot of people love Suga, and I can see why, but I don't have anything to say about him as well. There's nothing to him. He's loyal to Master Koga, but that's about it. We also don't even know what happens to Suga. There'll probably be DLC about it, but the last time we see Suga, he's fighting the Blight Ganons and the Hollow Champions, so Master Koga can escape. And we see Koga later on, but we never see Suga again, so I don't know if he's dead or if he's still alive or what's going on. I don't care about Suga either. He wasn't that great of a villain. But those complaints aside, back to the actual gameplay. As I said, everything is so, like, diverse and unique with each characters. To be fair, the only characters I didn't like were, ironically, Rivali and Teva. I felt for me personally, they were pretty weak. Their moveset wasn't quite the fast pace and brute force that I kind of require. So I went the whole game without playing them. By the time I had everyone else at level 50, those two were still at like level 11, I think. So I'll tell you how much I wasn't really a fan of those. The Divine Beasts is a big thing we have to talk about as well, because those are playable. They're really badly implemented. I was playing without the motion controls, by the way, just because I've been hearing the motion controls are bad, and maybe I'll try it after this, but I was playing without the motion controls, and I have to say, they're really clumsy and awkward to move around. And there's so many missions with them that it eventually becomes annoying and cumbersome to control them, and they're not really fun. Va Meadow is okay, and I would say Varuta is easily the best of them because it's the only one that's less frustrating than the rest, if that makes sense. Blight Ganons, we need to talk about that. Nintendo must really love the Blight Ganons, because not only did we fight them in Breath of the Wild, we fought them again in the DLC, and we fight them 3 times each in this game, not including the side challenges and quests. I'm not complaining. I really like the Blights in Breath of the Wild, and they look absolutely badass in this game. Literally, the whole color dynamic they have, They all look really cool and menacing, especially Water Blight Ganon with the ball and chain, and Fire Blight with those phoenix wings. They are really badass looking, but did we really need to fight them so many times? They were fun enough, and they were difficult enough that it wasn't too bad, I guess. But I do have to say that the scene in Fort Hateno where Link takes on all 4 of them is the second most badass thing in the entire franchise. You probably know what I'm going to say is the first most badass thing in this franchise. It also happens in this game. But Link taking on those blights, it was just so cool to see them like defend each other, but also give Link a trashing. And you get to see him at like full strength, just taking them all on one at a time. And then you get the emotion of Zelda trying to reach out to him, trying to save him. It wasn't exactly like what we expected from Breath of the Wild, but I think it was a lot cooler than what we saw in the memories, to be honest. Seeing Link go up against all 4 of them, just... my respect for him as a hero has grown immensely after that. And of course, if you couldn't guess already, the most badass moment in this franchise, above Link taking on the Blights, is Link cutting Calamity Ganon in half. That made my jaw drop. Because you beat him, and I thought Link was going to stab him in the forehead, like in Ocarina of Time. Because that's what it looked like it was doing. And I was really excited. I was like, okay, yes, this is going to be an awesome callback. No, he full on cuts him in half, and Zelda just vaporizes him with the Triforce, and it was the coolest thing ever. Also, that final fight with Calamity Ganon was something else entirely. Nintendo redeemed themselves. I love Calamity Ganon. Calamity Ganon is my favourite iteration of the character to date, just because he's actually threatening and he actually wins to an extent in Breath of the Wild. And even though he was pathetically weak in the boss fight, his design was really cool, and I liked that Dark Beast Ganon was a thing. But I hated how pathetically easy it was. There was no challenge. He went down very quickly in both forms, and the Divine Beast took him down to a third of his health in the first phase, so it wasn't really a fun final fight. It was very underwhelming in Breath of the Wild, because you played the entire game up to this point, building up as much strength as possible, and you don't even need it. Complete turnaround with Age of Calamity, where everything you've learned throughout the game, all the skills you've acquired are put to the test, because Ganon will absolutely destroy you. It was so badass. I couldn't contain my excitement when fighting him. And the design was so cool. It was like Demise mixed with Hyrule Warriors Ganondorf, and it was so much to love about it. And it was also really satisfying to see him kill Aster. As much as I hated Aster, to see Ganon do what he did to him was, you know, I'm glad Aster got taken out of the picture, to say the least. But that fight, it was worth everything. That was the point where I said, I don't care about the time travel. It was worth it for this one moment. This was perfect. And it just made me love Calamity Ganon even more, because now he was actually challenging. On top of that, he's playable. I haven't unlocked him yet, but he is playable. But he's one of the hardest characters to get. And I'm looking forward to playing this, because I'm going to do what everyone else is doing. And I'm going to fight Calamity Ganon as Calamity Ganon, because that's just something you have to do. Terrako grew on me as a character. He actually has a name. That was a surprise. It was also a surprise to see Zelda build him. But yeah, Terrako, he's playable. I don't really care. It's cool, but you know, he's not that strong. So I mean, it's alright. It's hit or miss. But his death, you know, I thought the whole cute robot thing was irritating at first, but his death and the whole thing where you're the one that kills him was pretty, that was a nice way for Nintendo to tug the heartstrings with the players. So that was something that was actually highly effective, I think, and I'm pretty sure everyone agrees. I would have preferred if they left out the post-game stuff, because Terrako being dead keeps that dark ending, but whatever. Another issue I had with the game was the post-game stuff. you rebuild Terrico and you get this pseudo kind of an ending where they're all happy to see him and the credits roll immediately. That was very disappointing because it takes many hours to get all the parts to rebuild him, and I would have thought that there would be some extra story or something that teases Breath of the Wild 2 even, but there was none of that. As disappointing as that was, it's a minor gripe. There is DLC coming, we've heard, so I'm sure that'll be fixed in time. It's also very interesting how Zelda's gameplay completely changes once you unlock the Triforce. Her moveset changes forever, and she's more powerful, but at the same time, maybe it's just me, but she feels weaker. I don't know if anyone else felt that way, but she felt weaker. Even though her charge meter fills up a lot quicker, her attacks feel weaker. Maybe it's because it's not as fast paced as her Sheikah Slate attacks, but I don't know. That might be just me. But yeah, overall, Age of Calamity, it delivers on story. Its story is surprising. It pulls this flip of being an alternate timeline while managing to keep you engaged because you're always guessing what's going to happen. And on top of that, you have the pleasantness of experiencing the world before it was destroyed, getting to see the Great Plateau, getting to see Akkala Citadel, or I should be saying Akkala, since that's apparently how it's pronounced. But that was another really cool moment, seeing the bridge get destroyed, because the bridge is gone in Breath of the Wild, and then seeing it happen in Age of Calamity, that was something I really enjoyed. It's a minor thing, but I really liked that. That was a cool detail. And getting to explore the fort obviously was really cool. On top of that, it delivers with thrilling gameplay, all these unique side quests and challenges. There's a lot of content here. It's jam-packed with content that'll keep you going for hours. Maybe not as many hours as you put into the original Breath of the Wild, but you'll still get a lot of hours out of this game. I've only had it a couple of days and I already have like 45 hours in it. So that'll tell you how addictive it is, and the game actually kind of motivates you to do better and upgrade faster. And it's a nice surprise, and I thank Nintendo for this, to tie us over until Breath of the Wild 2. They did a really good job. Even if they falsely marketed the game, they did a fantastic job, so it's hard to be mad. I'm just excited to see what's next. I'll do a separate video on Breath of the Wild 2 and its connection to this game at some point in the future, but for now, that is just my thoughts and opinions, my review on Age of Calamity. Let me know your thoughts and feelings down in the comment section below. Have you played Age of Calamity? How do you feel about it? Do you have a favourite character, favourite mission? What do you think of the environments, the story? Was there anything you didn't like? I want to hear everything you have to say down in the comment section below. And yeah, with that all said, thank you all for watching and please subscribe. Novus Goves out.